It is the show that's generating all kinds of momentum here in St. Louis and beyond. The Gashouse gang is picking up steam. We really appreciate everybody joining us. With Kevin Wheeler, I'm Tom Ackerman, and Bernie Miklasz, who is in a bit of a delay. We're going to blame that on the weather. Let me test it out, Bernie. Test it out.
Yeah, hello, test.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
For those
so
of you
I apologize, everybody. Yeah.
It's all good. For those of you listening on our podcast, you won't know the difference because you're not experiencing video, so it doesn't matter. And actually, aren't we playing this back tonight on KMOX? Hello.
How about if I just cover my mouth up? I can do that, I guess, right?
Do you have like an old COVID mask or something? Nobody will know the difference.
That's all right. It just looks like a kung fu movie, man. It's all good.
I can look like I'm being thoughtful.
Yeah. Speaking of illness, he doesn't have COVID, but Matt Pauley is out for this show. We're gonna we'll hopefully get him back later in the week. He's there's a lot of stuff flying around without a doubt, and it hit Matt Pauley here lately. So it is here in St. Louis, a very snowy, icy day. It has been for the last couple of days. So we're going to warm people up with some good baseball talk. Talked to John Mozeliak yesterday, and Mo, right away, he said, well, I'm thinking 6 weeks from now, Jupiter, Florida. Looking forward to getting down there, with a little chuckle, and I agree. That's a nice, warm thought. However, the Cardinals really haven't done anything. I mean, they haven't signed anybody. They have not traded Arenado. It's been a while. Bernie, I don't know that it's cause for concern necessarily because we're waiting for the Bregman deal to go down and then try to figure out where Arenado is going to go. Mo will not, nor will any GM in their right mind talk about free agents on a radio station that broadcasts to all 50 states, basically. So they're not going to talk about that, but I got to think some things are in the works here the next couple of weeks.
Well, we were talking about it earlier today, on the text message thread that we keep. And the UMass Live, or not UMass, I'm sorry, Mass Live, which is a Boston area site that covers all the Boston sports teams. There was a story that we all alluded to when we were talking earlier about how Arenado has, in effect, let the Red Sox know that he would approve a trade to Boston. And I assume that his agent is, just getting the word out to a couple select reporters there. And, which is the way it works. And I think that's intriguing, but we have to remember that it's just Arenado trying to get the word out that he would go to Boston. It doesn't mean that Boston wants him. So I still don't know what to do with it. But if Boston does not get Bregman, and they're reportedly in the hunt, if they don't get Bregman, then I guess they could pivot to Arenado. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I think you framed it exactly right, Bern. This is kind of, the way the reports came, Chris Cotillo was the first one I saw, but Sean McAdam is also on it. They work together. The way it was put was, if the Red Sox want to have interest, he would be interested. I'm paraphrasing, but that's how the report was phrased, right? This wasn't Boston is chasing Arenado and they're trying to make the move. It sounds like they're still in on Bregman, and I don't know exactly how many teams are, but it seems like it's them, the Mets, the Tigers, maybe the Angels lurking on the outside of all that because the Angels are weird and they do weird things. But once the Bregman thing goes, the Red Sox want to get better defensively. They've not been a great infield defense the last couple of years. Rafael Devers is not a good third baseman, but he's a great hitter. And their GM Craig Breslow has said Devers is our third baseman, but of course he's going to say that, right? He's not going to say, I want this guy to move off of third before he has an alternative. But they do have room for everybody, right? If they want to, they could acquire a third baseman, whether it's Bregman or Arenado, and slide Devers over to first, and then have Devers and Tristan Casas share first base and DH. And those are two big power left-handed hitters. So they have the lineup space to do this. The question is, do they really want the defensive upgrade? And then do they believe that there's a comeback in Arenado? And at that ballpark, there might be. I mean, for his skill set, pulling the ball in the air, even if he's not hitting it that far, it's still off that wall. That's still a hit or a double, where at a lot of ballparks, it's a fly out. So it might be a good fit.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think it's a great fit, Bernie, in Boston. I mean, I think he pulls, baseballs like it's his job, which it is. All he does is yank baseballs and hitting them off the monster and wherever else they play. I think that he's still elite defensively, and I think that it's a nice rebirth. Actually, he's not that far off of being back to where he was. He had a bad year, but he's not like in Goldschmidt. Goldschmidt looked, even though he led the team in home runs, he looked pretty lost a lot of the year. Arenado, just deals with, I think, sometimes getting out of sync and maybe getting a little down on himself. I think it'd be a great spot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things we don't have a lot of history on this number because it's not been published publicly other than last year. I think Bernie and we talked about this last week. Arenado has one of the slowest bat speeds in baseball. His bat speed is below average. It's in like the bottom 25% of baseball, and he's got the fourth longest swing in baseball.
Yes, he does.
Those combinations don't work. You can have a long swing if it's fast, and you can have a slow swing slower bat speed if it's a short swing, but you can't have a long swing that's slow. So he's got to work on shortening it up. I mean, you can work on being faster, but that's a harder thing to do at 34. But the thing that he's going to have to do, and it's fixable, every hitter can shorten their swing. It can be done. It's not easy, but it's fixable. So if that's what he's working on this offseason, it sounds like it might be, then you could be right. There could be a bounce back in there.
I think there could be. Bernie, my question to you about Arenado and about the Red Sox, is that a great fit for the Cardinals? Obviously not knowing what the Cardinals would get back, but also do the Red Sox represent a team that could take a lot of that salary where the Cardinals can have that true relief that they need?
Well, I would imagine Boston would try not to pick up most of that salary. I think they're going to, if they want to, the Cardinals want to get rid of Arenado and the Red Sox want him, I think the Red Sox have all the leverage. So I think they'll try to get the Cardinals to take on as much of that salary as they can. So that would be kind of where I start as far as trying to speculate on this. The other thing about the Red Sox, and this just kind of goes back to what we were saying, Nolan Arenado, they have to be confident. All right, this is a way to put it. The Red Sox have to be confident that Arenado can get back to pulling the ball in the air much better than he has in recent years. Since he joined the Cardinals, it's been going down, 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 down every year.
Yeah.
He just simply does not pull the ball in the air at the rate that he used to. If he can somehow, to Kevin's point, if he can somehow shorten his swing and get out in front a little more, then you could see a situation where he's banging a lot of doubles off the green monster and hitting more home runs than usual. But to me, that's the entire key to his success as far as rebounding as a hitter. Pull shots in the air, a lot more of them than he's done the last couple of years, especially last year.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting thing, Bernie. You guys, the money is going to be. I mean, the Cardinals are going to be stuck if there's only one or two teams, and it sounds like there might only be one at this point that's a legitimate option. Then you're going to have to take what you can get. Right. I mean, Boston is in spend mode, right? They are in the mode this offseason of increasing their payroll and trying to be better. But that doesn't mean they're going to take on all of this money or 90% of this money. We don't know. They might ask you to take back one of their bad contracts. And I would think that, if you're going to do that, why take on the player? Just eat the money, right? Like, there's been the Boston fans. I don't think this is reported by anybody legit, but they're all like, send him Masataka Yoshida. Yeah. The Cardinals would be better off just paying the money because then that just takes up a roster spot. And you'd probably end up just releasing that player anyway or forcing them in, which would be a mistake. The Cards just might have to come to terms with this idea that you might have to eat half of that. And if you end up having to eat half of it, you're still saving half and accomplishing your goal of creating playing time for these other guys.
Gashouse Gang from KMOX with Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler. I'm Tom Ackerman here on the Gashouse Gang. We have a lot to get to. Bernie, let's expand as we talk about Arenado. Before we do that, let's talk about our sponsor, which has been so good, Saliga Heating and Cooling.
And if anyone's wondering why I've got my hand over my mouth, everyone knows I'm out. Everyone knows that I'm out of sync anyway. But specifically today, for whatever reason,
you look like a pitching coach.
My video and audio are way out of sync.
It's a mound visit.
So I figure it's less of a distraction if I just cover my mouth up. Anyway, as far as Saliga Heating and Cooling, they've been around since 1927. They're an independent American standard heating and air conditioning dealer. Top of the line American standard equipment is part of the reason, a big reason why you should call Saliga Heating and Cooling. But really, look at the track record. 1927, the same family has owned it continuously. Dan Saliga is now the fourth owner, operator, fourth generation, going back to almost 100 years. So they've established trustworthiness and credibility. You're not still growing as a business unless you were excellent at what you've done and you've built an impeccable reputation through all these decades. So as a Saliga family, we highly recommend you call them if you're not sure who to call, and get in touch with them. They do all residential work, commercial work, all makes and models, repairs, you name it. They also have a priority club. You can become a member of the priority club. We are members of the priority club. It's a maintenance plan, a lot of benefits. I'll let you go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com and you can see all there is that you get for becoming a member of the priority club. We love it, and it has saved us money over the years. Financing options are available, subject to credit approval. You can get the phone number and all the info you want just by going to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. That's SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and that's a great sponsor. We appreciate them very much. I wanted to touch on something real quick, and that is that John Mozeliak, who was on the show with me yesterday on Sports on a Sunday Morning, talked about Arenado and where they are right now, and he said that it's very quiet. Let me see if I can pull up the quote here. There's a story on KMOX.com about it if you want to beat me to it. He says, if we have the ability to find him a place he desires, it's something we are going to try to do. If not, he will have to be a part of our club moving forward. I think he understands that, but I think, again, we have a lot of time left, and we'll see how things shake out over the next 3 to 6 weeks. But a lot of time, and just to remind ourselves that there is that time. So he's basically saying that they're going to trade him. I mean, there's still plenty of time to do it, understanding where they are. I think, Bernie, what we found here from this story from Chris Cotillo, who's very good. I mean, I've been following him since he was a child.
He was breaking stories when he was in high school.
Yeah, it was awesome. He said that, this would be, according to his sources, a desirable spot for Arenado. I don't see why not. It seems like a great spot. I don't hear Bernie. Do you?
Nope, we lost the audio, it looks like.
We lost our audio.
Uh-oh.
We good?
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
We're good. Fire away.
I tell you what, I need to get a hitting coach in here or something. Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. No, the thing about Arenado, and this applies to the possibility of trading him maybe during the season, and it applies to if he stays with the Cardinals. It fits both things. As Kevin pointed out, he's been working on shortening his stroke and, just increasing his bat speed. We don't know how that's going to go, but he's working on it. He's identified a major problem. So here's my question. It's an answer and a question. Arenado has been barely above league average the last 2 seasons. If you add them both together, if you use OPS plus, for example, he's about 103. He's 104. He's just barely above average. But let's just say he could pull that up in 2025 through some improvements. He could pull that up to like 115, like where he's like 15% above average. And that's a pretty big jump, but it's not an unreasonable jump. It's not like I'm saying, well, maybe he'll get it up to like 40% above average. Right. I think those days are gone. But if he can get the thing up to 12 to 15% above league average offensively from where he's been the last couple of years, first of all, I think it'd be a really big help to the Cardinals. And I think it would make him more attractive to teams that at that time, near the trade deadline, might need a third baseman and might look to John Mozeliak and the Cardinals.
Yeah, and if you look at it too, guys, I mean, again, this is just an oversimplification, but, he's a 2.5 win player the last 2 years, each of the last 2 years, and these are in down years. Well, teams typically value one WAR at about $9 to $10 million. So that makes him an $18 to $20 million player. Now, factoring in that he may continue to decline. I don't think anybody's going to actually place that value on him. But the point is, he's a valuable player. If he was in the free agent marketplace right now, he would have a team. Somebody would be giving him money. He'd probably be, I don't know, what do you guys say? If he was a free agent now, what, a $12 million player on a 2 or 3 year deal? Maybe 1 year with an option. Yeah, right, exactly, because of the defense. Because at third base, he's still a top-end defender. So, even though he's not what he used to be, and guys, keep in mind that like in 2022, he was a 7.5 win player. That's crazy to see that big of a change. But, if he's a 2 to 3 win player at a $10 million salary, he's an asset. That's not hurting another team. That's helping them.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. Arenado probably wins the MVP in 22, if not for Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah, he would have. He would have.
Yeah,
Goldie took a ton of those votes, but rightfully so. And then both of them, obviously flamed out the postseason, and then we're still kind of watching the Cardinals tumble from there. That was a tough one, man. 22 was supposed to be the year. You had Albert doing his magic. You had the Cardinals made moves for very good starters. They had it all locked down. Quintana comes out and deals right away. And then the Helsley finger thing happens and they lose game 1 and it all just falls. It just shows you how precious those games are and how things can change so quickly. It really is something. By the way, the Cardinals just released their caravan schedule. And how does that apply to this? I always like to see who they send on the caravan. Not that it tells you who they're going to keep, but I always like to think that it is. I like to think that.
I mean,
these are the
putting
players
them on the caravan. They're expecting them to be around, right?
That's right. They announced these guys just now. So Burleson, Baker, and Crooks. I don't think there's any surprises there. Those guys are going to Columbia. I'm going to Springfield with Palante, Liberatore, O'Brien, and Koperniak. That's a nice crew right there. Chip Carey's got Jordan Walker, Ryan Fernandez, Michael McGreevy, Zach Thompson. Let's see. Claves and Ricky Horton have Pages, Ciani, Fermin, and Ludos. They're going to Champaign, Illinois. My man Polo Asensio has Ivan Herrera, Victor Scott, Drew Rom, Tink Hentz, and Matt Pauly's going to take around Thomas to JC, Chris Roycroft, Kyle Leahy, Sem Robertson. So I always like to just see which players are going to be making their way around. It doesn't guarantee that, anything, but it's always fun to kind of play that game. But here's the thing. Okay. So I've seen someone comment already about free agents. So why are people harping on the Cardinals haven't signed free agents? I kind of agree with that. I don't think they're going to be that active. I mean, if you looked at the top 20 free agents out there, I would say the Cardinals aren't involved in any of them. Wouldn't you?
No, they're not at all. And see, this is what I'm kind of struggling to reconcile just a little bit. Okay. The Cardinals are one of 6 teams in the majors that have literally spent no money this offseason. Now that could change. There's a lot of relievers out there. There's a lot of people at the price point that they could afford. They'd be willing to take a flyer on. Low cost free agents or good value, low cost free agents. So that's why I understand where Mo doesn't want to paint a bleak picture all the time. I mean, I get that, but I think it is confusing to some people because, the Cardinals are talking about, and Ali Marmol's very optimistic too. We're going to be highly competitive. We're going to exceed expectations. They're implying they can contend for a postseason spot. And again, with all due respect to them, if you're not adding anything to your team, even if you keep Fetty and Helsley, if you're not adding on, I'm not sure how you get all that much better. Now, I have so much to say on this, but I'm not, because I'm going to write something about it maybe later today. There are ways offensively they can improve from within.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, but that's almost beside the point. The point is, I think the Cardinals are sending like mixed signals or a mixed message to their fans. And, their fans, I think even like the really well-grounded, reasonable fans, I'm not talking about the people that are saying, well, why didn't they go get Corbin Burns? I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that recognize the condition or the plan the Cardinals are going into in 2025, who would say, well, you still could use some bench help. You could use a couple of relievers. You could nip and tuck and upgrade there to give yourself more depth. If they're not going to do much of that, then I'm not sure what the basis is for saying that they can contend. That's all I'm trying to say. The mixed messaging, I think, is an issue for them.
Do you guys think the choice of words is important to pay attention to? Like they're saying we can be competitive. They're, like that can mean competing, because they've used that term when they're talking about competing for the division, right? Or competing for a playoff spot. Maybe it's just a specific word that can mean more than one thing that they've chosen to harp on, because that can also mean we're going to take what we've got and we're going to fight and compete with what we have to try to be as good as we can be. And that's how fans should be looking at it. That's how I look at this team. Like, good, they should compete. They should try to win as many games as they can. There are a lot of guys fighting to show what they are as major league players. There are a lot of players with a lot at stake, and I'll throw out an unpopular opinion to you guys. I wouldn't sign a single free agent for this team. Not one. I don't need it. I need to find out, can Zach Thompson pitch in the major leagues? Is Kyle Leahy even a thing? What's Michael McGreevy? And how am I giving these guys their looks? How am I getting innings for all of these guys if I'm blocking them with acquisitions from the outside? I got to find out about Graceffo. If I'm running the team this year, I need answers to questions on all of those guys before 2026, because I want to be able to go into 2026 thinking maybe we can win the division now that we've sorted through all of this stuff and we cleared some money and maybe we got our TV deal in a better position. I feel like this is the time to just, your depth comes from within. And if you end up short and you end up losing games because of it in July, who cares? Who cares if you have to lose games because you're calling up guys from AAA and getting beat? This is the year to do that.
That's what I say.
You can find out about everybody else.
Yeah, Kevin, just so I can clarify, man, I'm not saying they should sign free agents.
Oh, no, I'm with you guys aren't. I mean, we get a lot of those messages from Twitter and everything. Like, they need to go do this.
Although I would expect them to sign, a couple nominal free agents. Nobody from the top shelf or the middle shelf, but guys that Chaim Bloom, if he has a say in it, can identify, like Ryan Fernandez last year, can identify like, hey, you ought to take a chance on this guy.
Flyer on high upside, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I could see that, but it's just tough. Now, if the Cardinals, what's interesting about it, John Mozeliak, maybe I ought to send him an email or something. The one thing they don't say when they talk about, we think we can be competitive, right? Now, granted, they won't have some of the same players as last year. We know that already. But remember when they beat Milwaukee on Mother's Day on that Sunday afternoon? Starting with that, they went 68-55 the rest of the season. And it actually was one of the better records in the National League. And it was the second best record, only one game worse than Milwaukee from May 12th to the end of the season. So if you're going to use talking points to just get your fans to think, oh, well, yeah, well, hey, maybe some of these guys start to come through. Yeah, I can see what they're saying. But they, for some reason, like that should be a talking point if they're going to try to sell a message to the fans. But they never mention it. I don't know why. They use these vague things, and it only leaves people confused.
Yeah.
This is the Gashouse Gang on KMOX with Bernie Miklasz and Kevin Wheeler. I'm Tom Ackerman, talking about the Cardinals and their possibility to contend, or the messaging that they're giving their fans and really themselves. I mean, Bernie, you just referenced the Mother's Day game against Milwaukee. Literally, Paul Goldschmidt sent Adam Wainwright a text message and said, we are going to win this division after that game. Bueno told me that story on the air. Well, it turned out obviously not to be true, but something was going on in there where they felt confident enough that they got it, that it clicked. I think the situation they're in right now is like threefold. One, they want to sell tickets for sure. I mean, they want to get people involved. So they are a marketing machine. So they have to be able to give some sort of hope out there that this is going to be a fun team to watch, but they also have to be realistic. Nolan Arenado is still on their roster and they don't know if he's going to be there or not at the start of the season. And they have also said that they want to play young players. And that's the proper thing to do right now if you're doing a true reset. The third thing I think that is in play here is something they've always liked to do, is to take all the expectation and pressure off their young players. You ever notice that?
Mm-hmm.
They never, even in their best years, if we were like, hyping up a guy, yeah, they would hype him up as a prospect. But when it came to playing time and talking about him, they never put parameters on those young players. Like he's the next so-and-so. And I think they're still trying to pull the reins back a little bit on that. And I think they prefer, to be honest, I'm speaking for them here in a way, just from what I read. I think they don't want pressure on the team. I think that's part of this whole thing, is they want these young players to just go out and play the game that you love and play. And let's just take these pressures off of you. Go out and fail. Go out and have success and have a good time. Is that the best thing for the fans? I don't know. I mean, we're going to find out. Will it grow organically? I think the big question here, I'll throw it back to Bernie on this one, is, what has to happen for them to be a contender? Let's assume that Arenado gets traded and Gorman's your third baseman, and maybe, they make one or two, as you mentioned, minor free agent depth moves. What has to happen and what absolutely can't happen for them to be in the mix?
Well, Kevin, we can go back and forth on this. I'll give one, then you give one, and Aki can jump into, because I don't want to hog the conversation is what I'm trying to say. Well, first of all, if they want to contend, if they think they can contend, they have to keep Helsley and Fetty. Now, I'm not in favor of that, but let's just go by the premise that's presented. First of all, those guys have to be there. That's number one. Number two, I'll use a generality here without naming names because everybody should know the team by now. I've been doing some numbers on all this. The Cardinals have a really promising nucleus of left-handed hitters. And keep in mind that about 70 to 72% of the plate appearances in a season are taken against right-handed pitchers. So you have this big-time platoon split advantage because you have such a good collection of left-handed hitters. Not only the guys who are here that have done well, you have some guys that are on the way, whether it be Weatherholt, and I'm not saying in 2025, but whether it be Weatherholt, whether it be Chase Davis, whether it be Jimmy Crooks,
right,
who had sick numbers against right-handed pitching in Double-A last year. But the point is, if they can get some of those guys, especially Gorman, but there are others, to pull their numbers up, they could be a lot tougher against right-handed pitching, and their offense would be a lot better against right-handed pitching in 2025. So that's another way. You guys take it from there.
Yeah. I'm gonna take your lead on this, Bernie. I think the key to being, if we're gonna see a contender, they've got to be adaptable and they've got to start playing the odds. Last year, they failed to do that. They could not do anything against left-handers because they didn't have a roster that was built to handle left-handers. And it wasn't until September that you brought up Luke and Baker and had enough guys on your team that could bat right-handed against lefties and hit lefties to be competitive. So they need to be aggressively versatile if they're going to be good. And maybe that kind of runs a little counter to the find out about guys. But you know what? I don't think we need to find out whether or not Alec Burleson can hit lefties. I don't think we need to find that out right now. You got to find out more about the younger players. Now, Burley's fairly young. But I mean, if we're talking about contention, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to play it like, okay, this is today's lineup and tomorrow's lineup is going to be different because we're facing a lefty. And you have to have a bench that's built to support that. You have to have at least two guys on the bench who hit lefties, regardless of who they are, whether it's Herrera or Baker or Sajasi or something, because that's what it's going to be about. Because if I'm looking at this team, there are a lot of individual players that you need upticks from. So we could name any of them and start talking about it. Newt needs to play a full season, and Contreras needs to be healthy, and Gorman and Walker need to take steps forward. All that's true. But if they run the team the same way they did last year, and they have a bench that's basically a backup catcher and three guys that don't really fit what you need, you're going to be the same thing. So you got to build the roster and have a bench that complements what you're talking about, because they have some really great left-handed bats. They're not all going to hit lefties, though. So if you want to contend, then you got to find a way to balance that split.
Yeah. And, for me, it's about offense. I mean, and innings, because as bad as that rotation was at times, they did have some guys that at least took the ball every day. And that's something that they are going to have to replace, or if they're going to be a contender this year, they may have to trot out 9 or 10 starters just to kind of, keep rotating people in and out of the rotation to keep that thing alive. I think the bullpen's good. especially if Helsley's there. I think that's fine. I think it was managed very well. I worry a little bit about the rotation, bringing young guys in who haven't gone that deep. But it could be interesting to see who comes out of it. But this is all about hitting to me. The team failed last year because it couldn't hit. I mean, there's no way they could be worse with runners in scoring position as they did last year.
Right.
And so to Kevin's point, you got to have those right. Isn't that funny that you couldn't hit lefties and you had two at one time, two of the best right-handed hitters in the game in Goldsmith and Arenado. And it just fell apart. The offense was just horrendous. So,
the last 2 seasons, Arenado's numbers against left-handed pitching are Mike Ciani numbers. I'm serious. They're that bad. I'm not trying to cheap shot him. It's a fact.
Those are real, yeah.
So, that sort of gets me back to something to tie it all in. And I know Kevin Wheeler has really harped on this, and I give him credit because I agree with him. The Cardinals offense has been really bad, except for 2022. It's been either mediocre, slightly above average, most of the time below average. Well, Ollie Marmol, who does a lot of things well, more than he gets credit for, he seems to be obsessed with we got to have Ciani in center. We got to have Ciani in center. And also we all have doubts that they're going to play Pages behind the plate more than Herrera. And Herrera has got a wonderful bat and tremendous upside offensively.
Yeah.
And with Ciani, and I know what they're basing it on. And let me just be a numbers nerd briefly here. Like from June the 24th through August the 2nd, he got hurt the next day, right? Ciani hit 354. He had an 805 OPS. So they see that and they're like, well, see, he can hit in the big league. Now, people that understand the impact of batting average on balls in play, in other words, the luck factor. During that stretch, right? During that stretch, you know what Ciani's batting average on balls in play was? 492.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that all but like 3 or 4 of his hits were singles. So he was basically, there's nothing wrong with singles, but I'm saying a lot of that was flat out having great luck. That is not so. No one in the history of the game has gone at even a half season with a batting average of 492 on balls in play. So that's all puffed up. It's all inflated, and yet the manager of the Cardinals seems to think, there's a lot there. I think maybe there's more there than he has been. They're getting really carried away, and I also think Pages may call a better game, and he may be all around some other than that, like leading pitchers and all that. But he doesn't throw out base stealers not that much better than Herrera.
No, not good.
The other thing, if this is a play the young guys thing and you have a potential big time bat at catcher that can be under service to you for many years, isn't 2025 the year that you have to give Herrera every chance to work on his skills behind the plate as a catcher? Or you're just going to plug in the guy that the pitchers like?
Yeah, I mean, great point.
It drives me nuts. It really does. I go bananas, Aki.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, nobody's more of a fan of catcher defense than me, right? I mean, I love catcher defense. It's a big deal to me. We have to acknowledge 2 things. Offense separates the men from the boys in Major League Baseball much more than defense. Look, defense at catcher matters a lot. It doesn't matter that much in center field. It just doesn't. There aren't that many plays in a game that a great center fielder makes that an average center fielder doesn't make. And those differences don't always come with a game on the line. I can understand saying, well, catcher's involved in every pitch. I agree with all of that. But I also think that when you have a guy like Herrera, who could be a middle of the order bat, you got to see if he can get better. He's new. You got to see if he can get better. And the Ciani thing, guys, why I go on this rant, man. As bad as his actual numbers were, 228 batting average, 285 slug, 570 OPS. Based on his batted ball numbers, the expected numbers are all worse.
Right.
His expected batting average is 205. His expected slug is 265. Weighted on base for real, 257, which is brutal. It's expected to be 243. So your point about luck was 100%, Bernie. Thank you for doing that, because they get caught up in the result. That's not what you have to look at. You have to look at the ability. He doesn't hit the ball hard. He doesn't hit it often enough. He doesn't square it off, and he strikes out. You can't be those things. I mean, and a guy is not going to go from being a bad hitter in the minor leagues to just being a good hitter in the major leagues. Yeah. And I feel bad about this because I really root for guys like Siani.
Right.
I want him to succeed. I want every one of these guys. That guy's a grinder. He works his ass off. But you know what? This game at the big league level is not about try hard. You know, when you're batting run value, when you're in the bottom 10% of hitters in baseball, you're not an everyday player. You're a bench guy. And that's fine. If he's on the bench, depending on the structure of it all, whatever. But, you know, maybe we should add that, guys. Maybe we should get some more offense in center field too.
Well, if Arenado stays, Tom, the one thing they could do, because Gorman moves back to second base, you put Donovan in left field, you put Nootbaar in center, and then you have Walker in right. Now, I'm not saying Nootbaar is going to be like a plus center fielder, but he's pretty much been average in center field, and his bat would bring a lot to that outfield, and that outfield was not very productive at all last season. So, you know, you get, and Burleson, of course, would take turns and be out there in left field some. But I'm just saying there's a way. See, that's what I mean. There's actually some other like indirect benefits. If Arenado stays, you actually can probably improve your outfield offense if Arenado is your third baseman. So I'm starting to look at it that way, to like turn it around and say, okay, is it Arenado's performance aside, are there some other benefits offensively to him remaining their third baseman?
The Gashouse gang from KMOX. Before I offer some congratulations to Kevin Wheeler, let me throw it to Bernie Miklasz for a sponsorship, Saliga Heating and Cooling. What you got?
Well, they're the best. And the Miklasz family, we've been their clients for about 16 years. And we came in late to that thing because Saliga Heating and Cooling has been around since 1927. The same families owned it since 1927, and they are proud independent American standard heating and air conditioning dealer. They do all residential work, commercial work, all makes and models. They have that new American standard equipment if you need it. They also have a maintenance program to help you make sure you're ready for all seasons. It's called the Priority Club. We are members, and you should become, or you should look into becoming a member of the Priority Club. Benefits of preventative maintenance, safety, peace of mind. You can save money because you can extend your equipment life. The service you can trust, the priority scheduling, you get some perks. But that's the bottom line with Saliga. If they weren't great at what they do you think they'd still be going strong in 2025 after they opened in 1927? And I'll just tell you this and then I'll be quiet. 100% trustworthiness. That's what we found over the last 16 years as a Saliga family. 314-481-7333, or to find out more about the Priority Club and financing options available subject to credit approval, go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
It's been a great show, guys. We'll do our NFL picks later in the week, but this isn't Honolulu Blue. This is a little too light. There you go, baby.
King in the North.
What a beatdown, man. What a beatdown.
King in the North.
Dude. Congrats. That's awesome.
I mean, come on, man. 12 defensive players on injured reserve, 6 of your week 1 starters on defense on injured reserve, and you're 15-2. That's crazy. I barely believe it.
They turned the Vikings Sam Darnold into the Jets Sam Darnold.
I think Sam Darnold cost himself a lot of money yesterday.
I think he might have. But he'll have another chance in the playoffs.
No, he will. You're right. And he can turn that around. But man, if I'm the Vikings, if he doesn't do something in the playoffs, are you going to spend all that money, or are you just going to play your first round pick?
That's all right. The Vikings have a home game. They have a home game in LA, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's true. Every game's a home game in LA for the visitor.
It is true.
I had Bengals Lions in the Super Bowl at the start of the year, so I got one of them, I think, right. I think the Lions are going to do it, but we'll see.
Man. We got to get a couple guys back, but they're in good shape.
Hey, did you see? I know we're extending this bonus time. Did you see where Corey Schrader got his first NFL action yesterday?
I was very excited for Cody.
They put him in on one series and on consecutive plays. He had about a 4.5 yard run. Then he caught a pass for about 6-7 yards. And it was just, I was excited. I wasn't even paying close attention to the game because I was working on some research. And then I hear Corey Schrader into the game and I went, what? It was awesome to see him in the NFL.
It's awesome.
And Sean McVay really likes that cat.
Oh, so he's a great kid. I mean, just a great kid. he carries himself just as he does as a player on the football field. Just awesome. I'm so happy for him. Guys, it's been a pleasure. We will catch up with you again tomorrow. Kevin Wheeler and I will be together, and we will throughout the course of the week. Don't miss the Gashouse.
What
gang.
a week this is, guys. What a week this is. College football playoffs, NFL playoffs, Blues getting back at it, and then maybe an Arenado deal.
Maybe. We will see you tomorrow. Gashouse gang right here from KMOX.